My name is Daniel Carter. I'm 47, and my greatest regret began when I risked my family for a stranger's attention. For years, I kept my story hidden because I was ashamed of what I had done. But guilt grows louder with time, and silence never heals the truth. Before everything fell apart, my life was ordinary. My wife, Rachel, worked evening shifts at a neighborhood health clinic. She had a gentle laugh that filled our home with peace. Every night before sleeping, she read a few pages from her favorite novels. I rarely paid attention to the stories, but hearing her voice made me feel safe. We had one daughter, Sophie, who was 13 years old. When she was younger, she always climbed into our bed during thunderstorms. Rachel would wrap her arms around her and smile. Looking back, those simple moments were the happiest days of my life, but I was too distracted to appreciate them. Everything changed when a new employee joined my office. Her name was Natalie Hayes. She was confident, friendly, and knew exactly how to make people feel noticed. During lunch breaks, she often invited me for coffee. At first, we talked only about work, but those conversations slowly became personal. One afternoon she looked at me and said, "You always seem tired." No one had said those words to me in years. I admitted that balancing work and family wasn't easy. She listened carefully. That attention made me feel important. Soon coffee breaks turned into dinners after work. I started staying late at the office, creating excuses before driving home. Every lie became easier than the one before. Rachel noticed the change. One evening, while warming my dinner again, she quietly asked, "Is everything okay between us?" I forced a smile. "Of course." She nodded, but I could see doubt hiding behind her eyes. Instead of telling her the truth, I buried it deeper. Weeks later, Natalie reached across the table and gently held my hand. I knew I should pull away. I didn't. That single decision became the beginning of everything I lost. Our relationship turned into a secret. We met inside a small apartment across town where nobody knew us. Every time I returned home, Rachel welcomed me with kindness instead of suspicion. She never searched through my phone. She never questioned my pockets. She trusted me completely. Looking back, I realize her trust was far more valuable than the excitement I chased. Natalie eventually grew impatient. "You can't keep living two lives forever," she said. She wanted me to leave my family. I kept delaying the decision because I lacked the courage to face the consequences. Then something happened that changed my life forever. One evening, Rachel suddenly became seriously ill after dinner. She complained of unbearable stomach pain before collapsing onto the kitchen floor. I rushed her to the hospital while Sophie cried beside us. Doctors fought to save her throughout the night. Before sunrise, they delivered the worst news imaginable. Rachel was gone. The doctors believed poisoning had caused her death. Police officers questioned everyone close to us, but weeks passed without answers. Eventually, the investigation ended, leaving only grief behind. Most people accepted it as a terrible mystery. I couldn't. A few days before Rachel became sick, Natalie had visited our home and brought homemade herbal tea, saying it would help Rachel sleep after her long shifts. I hadn't thought much about it then. After Rachel's death, that memory never left me. Every night I wondered if I should ask Natalie about it. Every night fear stopped me. Deep inside, I worried I already knew the answer. Almost a year passed after Rachel's funeral. Friends encouraged me to move forward. They said Sophie needed stability, and they insisted that starting over would help us heal. Instead of listening to my heart, I listened to everyone else. I married Natalie. The ceremony was quiet, but it never felt joyful. Sophie stood beside me without smiling. Looking at her face, I realized she had lost far more than I had. Soon after the wedding, our home began to change. Natalie packed Rachel's clothes into storage boxes. Family photographs disappeared from the walls, and the little traditions that once made our house feel warm slowly vanished. One afternoon, Sophie searched for her mother's old sweater, the one she secretly hugged whenever she missed her. Natalie had already donated it. That night, my daughter cried herself to sleep. At first, Natalie remained pleasant whenever I was around. But when we were alone, I noticed another side of her. She criticized Sophie over tiny mistakes, complained that the house wasn't clean enough, and treated every small disagreement like a personal attack. Gradually, Sophie became quiet. She stopped laughing at dinner. She spent more time alone in her room. Then I noticed bruises on her arm. She claimed she had bumped into a desk at school. I wanted to believe her because the truth frightened me. Everything changed one rainy afternoon when I returned home early. As I entered the kitchen, I heard Natalie shouting. Sophie stood against the wall while Natalie gripped her wrist tightly. My daughter looked at me with frightened eyes. In that moment, I remembered Rachel lying helpless in the hospital, and every excuse I had ever made suddenly collapsed. That night, I couldn't sleep. I realized that whether my suspicions about Rachel's death were true or not, I had still ignored countless warning signs and brought someone dangerous into my daughter's life. The following weeks became unbearable. Natalie's anger eventually turned toward me. She insulted me constantly, blamed me for every problem, and sometimes threw dishes across the room during arguments. I stopped looking forward to going home. Instead, I sat alone inside my car after work, listening to old voice messages Rachel had left years earlier. Hearing her gentle voice reminded me of the life I had destroyed with my own choices. The final moment came one Saturday afternoon. Sophie was finishing a school assignment when Natalie demanded she clean the kitchen immediately. "Please. I only need a few more minutes," Sophie whispered. Without warning, Natalie swept the books onto the floor. As my daughter bent down to collect them, her hands were shaking. Something inside me finally broke. I stepped between them. "Don't touch her again," I said firmly. Natalie laughed, believing I would back down like always. I didn't. I packed her belongings that same evening and placed them beside the front door. Our marriage ended without another chance. She left shouting that I would regret losing her. The house became silent after the door closed. A few moments later, Sophie wrapped her arms around me. For the first time in years, I told her the truth. "I'm sorry." Those words couldn't repair the past, but they were honest. Life slowly became peaceful again. Every morning I prepared breakfast before taking Sophie to school. We talked about ordinary things, shared quiet dinners, and remembered Rachel without fear. Her photograph returned to the living room where it belonged. Every Sunday we visited her grave together. I told Rachel that I couldn't change yesterday, but I would spend the rest of my life protecting the daughter we both loved. Some mistakes never disappear. Some regrets stay with us forever. But I finally learned that love isn't proved by promises. It is proved by loyalty, courage, and protecting the people who trust you before it's too late. That lesson cost me almost everything. I only hope my daughter grows up remembering not the man I used to be, but the father I finally chose to become.